don't really know what to make of this t-shirt. It's very strange material, and it's also so long I could literally chop it up and make it into a dress.
Lesmiserableone. Ding.
Hello there once again, my friends, and welcome back to the Lesmiserableone channel, a place where we make silly internet videos and things. Now, this video was not going to happen. I was only going to make that one reaction video to the first 2 episodes, just a cute little one-off, and that was that. Of course, all of this was until I watched the 3rd episode and immediately felt the compulsive need to talk about it at length in a YouTube video. Now, when I made that first video reacting to the first 2 episodes, it came from a place of absolutely zero context. I'd literally only just watched Avengers Endgame for the first time. I have very little kind of background knowledge of the comics and the source material, so everything just kind of purely came from a place of I am just watching this as a standalone thing that exists as it is and as it does, but that is also going to tie into other things at some point. Probably, I just don't know or understand how, where, why, and when. Of course, that has not all dramatically changed in the last 5 to 6 days. I don't suddenly now possess an encyclopedic knowledge of comic books. However, what I have done is watched a few sort of YouTube context videos about all the different Easter eggs, theories about what could be happening, the context behind the series and how it could sort of tie into everything else. And whereas at first I was just watching it because it was a really cool sitcom thing and I was like, yes, I want to live in this world, now I am also 100% invested in the whole MCU element, the mystery of it all, because really it's the first time that a mystery of this sort of scale has existed within the MCU. Like, obviously there was the whole cliffhanger ending between Infinity War and Endgame, but this is the first sort of episodic drama where there's this whole weird mystery going on that people are unraveling and theorizing on week to week, and it's very interesting, and I just honestly am happy to be here to be part of the conversation. Do I have any real interesting insights to offer that nobody else has said or thought of or talked about? No. Am I probably just going to be parroting things you've heard 100 times from bigger channels? Maybe. But do I just want to be involved? Yes. So fasten your seatbelts and strap right in, kids, because today's video is going to include spoilers. Now, what hadn't actually been immediately clear to me from the first 2 episodes is that they're not actually all set in the 50s. The first one is set in the 50s, whereas the second is set in the 60s, and the third, now in colour, is set in the 70s. Ironically enough, this is actually the first episode so far in which Deborah Jo Rupp's character hasn't appeared, although presumably it's because during the 70s she just had other things to do. This episode centers around Wanda's pregnancy, which happens towards the very, very end of the 2nd episode, which, as with a decade passing between each episode, also seems to be occurring incredibly fast. The Doctor seems to think that Wanda is 4 months pregnant, despite Vision claiming that they only discovered she was pregnant 12 hours ago. A lot of the comedic sort of impacts and effects in this episode are based around Wanda's pregnancy, and the fact that the things that are kind of happening to her as part of this are reflected at grander scale around this sort of town. These contractions are causing major power fluxes, which ultimately result in a power outage throughout the town. When our waters break, it literally starts like raining inside of her house. Oh yeah, and also for some reason there's just a stork. You know, like, because storks bring babies, but it's just there. And she can't seem to make it go away. She's like, poof, with the magic red smoke, and it doesn't. It's like, no ma'am. However, right from the beginning of this episode, we're starting to see more of those weird sort of cracks in the foundation that we're really starting to pick up towards the end of episode 2. Also, side note, now that I know to look for the sword logo, I'm seeing it everywhere, including in the opening credits to this episode where Vision's constructing the swing set and he happens to make the logo, which of course we also saw at the very end of episode 1, on the helicopter in episode 2, and on the back of the beekeeper's outfit. One of the first major glitches that we see is that Herb is just kind of staring into space, whilst he's meant to be gardening, but he's kind of just sawing through the wall. A YouTube channel by the name of New Rockstars compared that moment to that one bit in Rick and Morty where the guy's just like, my man! My man! And honestly, I found that too hilarious not to mention here, because it's just so apt. We also see Vision start to break because he questions like, hang on, there's something really weird and not right going on here, and he directly says it to Wanda, at which point there's a little glitch and he rewinds. Now the prevailing question surrounding this is, was that Wanda rewinding it in the same sense that she rewound the beekeeper at the end of the second episode, or was that some sort of external influence? My personal take is that it was her doing it. She's just obviously become more adept, because it feels like she's really involved in this little world, in this little town, this little world that she's created, or that we assume she's created. From everything that I've seen so far, she seems to be like, no, this is my little world, we're gonna live here, we're gonna be happy, we're gonna have kids, it's gonna be great. And I really feel like that stems from a place of trauma. Because if you remember Wanda at the end of Endgame, when she confronts Thanos, she tells him that he took everything from her. Her brother was killed, Vision was killed, then time was rewound and Vision was killed again. Whilst Endgame might have done a lot to tie up a lot of like loose threads for a lot of different characters, her life just sort of seems to suck still. And so it would make sense, given these sorts of monumental powers that she has and the place that she must be coming from mentally and emotionally, that she would construct this idyllic little fantasy land where she can just live and everything is perfect. And when things start to break and things aren't so perfect, that's when she's like, no ma'am. When a beekeeper guy, possibly from Sword, possibly just something, no one really knows, there's a lot of theories, but when a beekeeper guy appears and tries to break in, she's like, no, Uno reverse card. And this little thing here with Vision seems to be the same thing, where he's questioning the very fabric of this reality that they found themselves in, and she's like, no, backwards. And it's almost like she's rewriting the script to her own show, and she wants it to play out exactly the way that she wants it to play out. All of this is, of course, reinforced towards the end of the episode when Geraldine brings up Ultron killing her brother Pietro, and she's like, sorry, what? You said that, sorry, what? She completely snaps, chucks her out of the little bubble completely, but not before recognizing the Sword logo once again and being like, no. This, of course, is also referenced through the incredibly not so subtle at all ad break in this episode, Hydra Soak, where they directly mention wanting to escape from reality because you don't like the way your own life is going and you've had too much of it. Why not escape to a world that's all your own? Which Vision, of course, alludes to in his choice of William Shakespeare quotes.
All the world's a stage, all the men and women merely players.
But I think the question for me really is this a town that's all completely just made up? It's a figment of her imagination. Well, not entirely a figment of her imagination, but obviously Vision died. And this weird idyllic town that she lives in, where everyone's sort of just so, it just really feels fake. It feels manufactured. And we see as Geraldine is evicted from this bubble reality that it literally does exist within like a bubble, like a force field. And so I question, is it possible that it's just all her projection, her power, which is why when it starts to break or things start to become loose, it has such catastrophic impacts outwards, would also explain her pregnancy having such direct effects on the environment surrounding her, because it is all a manifestation of her creation. Or is it just a random town that she's happened across and just went, you know what, I'm gonna take over this place? Because there are a number of theories as to who the villain is in this series, or at least in this kind of phase of the Marvel thing. People have spotted references throughout the first few episodes to Mephisto, who would be Marvel's version of the devil, or a character called the Grim Reaper, who is spotted on Agnes's little pendant and in the animated opening to episode 2. However, with the way that she sort of started to snap towards the end, it's now theorized as to whether Wanda herself is the villain in this context. Not overtly because she is a villain, but just because of that trauma that she went through. She's just sort of snapped. Especially when you consider just how powerful she is, especially when all these theories are running along the idea that she literally created this town herself, or at least created the comings and goings and the happenings of it, and it's all a story that she's telling. And of course, just to round it all out, the episode literally ends on the song Daydream Believer. daydream believer. None of it's real. So again, these are just some of my thoughts combined with thoughts that I've found from other people's videos and thoughts, because obviously I don't have enough background information and context to be able to come up with a lot of these theories, but watching and sharing and talking about them is nice. So I thought I would just join the discussion. Again, as I said, I don't really have much to add of my own. I just really personally am happy to be here, happy to be along for the ride, to actually be caught up enough on the MCU to be able to contribute and talk about it. And so thank you for coming along and watching my little take on what's going on. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do leave a like rating down below and let me know your thoughts, both about the show and about me producing this sort of content in the comments below. It will be appreciated. Of course, if you'd like to see future videos along these lines and just on other things, please do hit the subscribe button. As I said, this video was never planned, it wasn't going to happen, but now that I'm this deeply involved, I think it may well end up becoming a weekly thing. Don't hold me to that, but I think. Of course, there will be other content that is not WandaVision related. My last video, I opened a bunch of old Doctor Who card packs from 2006. That was really cool and exciting for me. So if you want to check that out, I'll put it in the iCard, and also just subscribe, check out the channel, anything else you might like. Overall, really, I just hope you're having a really good day. I will see you in more videos really soon. Subscribe. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. Ba-ba-da.